She betrayed me with her boss and we lost everything 250, zero in stolen inheritance. Then she sued me for half the property in a bitter court fight, all while I uncovered her secret affair lasting years. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, betrayed me with her boss. Honestly, the whole thing felt like some bad soap opera, but it's real. The most shocking part. We lost everything 250, zero in stolen inheritance, a bitter court fight over the house, and all the lies I never saw coming. And through it all, I uncovered her secret affair that had been going on for years. It started small, I guess. Little things that didn't seem like a big deal at first. Lisa always had a way of being bitchy when she was stressed, snapping at me over nothing, canceling plans last minute, and brushing off my concerns like they were nothing. I just chalked it up to her being tired or overwhelmed at work. She was always busy, climbing the corporate ladder, always on her phone, always with that fake smile plastered on her face when she was around her colleagues. I knew. She was ambitious, but I never suspected anything beyond that. Things started to get weird about 6 months ago. She began working late more often, claiming it was just important meetings. But I noticed her phone would be tucked away more and more, and she'd get defensive if I asked to see her messages. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her. We'd been together for 10 years after all. But then I started noticing little inconsistencies. Her stories about where she was, who she was with, and her sudden obsession with her work email. She'd say she was working late, but I'd find her texting someone secretly in the bathroom or outside on the balcony when she thought I wasn't looking. One night, I decided to check her phone. I know, big mistake, but I was just tired of feeling like I was being played. I found a string of messages between her and her boss. It wasn't just work talk. It was flirtatious, intimate, and downright inappropriate. The kind of messages that made my stomach turn. They were talking about secret meetups, sneaking around, and even her saying she was so tired of pretending everything's fine. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to process this. Instead, I started digging deeper. I found bank statements showing payments to a hotel she'd never mentioned. Her credit card had charges from places she'd told me she never went. It all added up. She had been lying to my face for months, maybe even years. Meanwhile, she kept insisting she loved me, that I was overreacting, that was just as she was friendly with, nothing more. But I knew better now. I had proof. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about the lies, the deception, the fact that she'd been sneaking around while I was working my ass off trying to build a future for us. We were supposed to be secure, but she was out there, screwing her boss and throwing everything we had away. I found out she'd been cheating on me with for at least 3 years. That's a long time to be living a lie. What really hit me hard was discovering that she had been involved in stealing from my family. Inheritance. We inherited a pretty sizable estate, around $250, $0 worth of assets. I knew she was after some of it because she'd been pressuring me to put her name on the accounts, saying she wanted security. But I never expected her to go as far as stealing from family. I found out she'd secretly transferred money to her own accounts, funneling it away. When I confronted her, she tried to deny everything, acting like I was crazy. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, and that I was overreacting because I was jealous. That was her go-to excuse. "You're just insecure, honey. It's just my boss, nothing more. You're making up stories." But I had the proof. That's when everything started to unravel. I felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything, was a liar and a cheat. And the money, our money, was gone, stolen right out from under us. The inheritance that was supposed to secure our future. It was gone, and she had no remorse. Instead, she doubled down on her lies, accusing me of being paranoid or controlling. She said I was ruining everything because I didn't trust her. But I knew the truth. And the truth was I was better off without her, even if it hurt like hell to admit it. I didn't know what to do next. I was furious, broken, and feeling betrayed on every level. I had to figure out my next move, whether to fight her, take her to court, or just walk away. But one thing was clear: things would never be the same again. After I found out about her affair and the money she'd stolen, my mind was a mess. I was angry, hurt, and honestly kind of numb. Lisa kept insisting she was done with, that it was just a fling, just a mistake she made when she was stressed. Yeah, right. I didn't believe her. I'd seen the messages, the hotel receipts, and the way she'd been sneaking around. It was obvious she'd been lying to me for years. But what crushed me even more was realizing she'd been stealing from my family's inheritance. That was the final straw. I remember sitting in the living room, staring at the pile of bank statements and phone screenshots I'd printed out. My hands were trembling. How could she do this? How could she betray me, my family, and everything we built? I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. I kept replaying the moments when she'd lied to my face, the times I'd trusted her, and now I saw how everything was just a lie. I felt so stupid for not noticing sooner, for not seeing the signs. But the truth was right there, staring me in the face. The next step was confronting her. I knew I had to do it face to face, even if I didn't want to. I waited until she was home from work, trying to keep my voice steady. When she walked in the door, I just looked at her and said, "Lisa, we need to talk. I know everything." Her face faltered for a second, then she put on that fake bitchy smile and started lying again. She said was just a work friend, that she never cheated on me, that I was just paranoid because I didn't trust her. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. But I had the proof, her own words, her bank transactions, the hotel receipts. I lost my temper then. I told her I knew about her affair, about the stolen money, and that I wasn't going to sit around and be played for a fool anymore. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, saying I was hurting her, that I was misjudging her, that meant nothing. She even had the nerve to say I was jealous, that I was insecure. That's when I realized she'd been spinning her web of lies for so long she believed her own bullshit. I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. That night I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I was furious but also devastated. I'd trusted her for so long, and now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd shattered everything we had. I knew I couldn't stay with her. I started packing my things, thinking about what to do next. I didn't want to just walk away without a plan. I had to protect myself and my money, especially after discovering she'd been siphoning off our inheritance. I also knew I had to figure out how to handle the court case she was planning. She was already talking about suing me for half the property, claiming she deserved her fair share. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally knew the truth, and anger because I was the one who was hurt the most. I never thought I'd be in this situation, but here I was, trying to piece my life back together. I knew I had to be smart about this. I started contacting a lawyer, gathering every bit of evidence I had. I also reached out to some of her colleagues, just to get more context about her relationship with and what she might be planning. I was trying to cover all my bases because I knew she was dangerous when she felt cornered. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, crying, pleading, insisting she loved me. She even tried to manipulate me into forgiving her, saying she'd change and that she'd never do anything like this again. But I wasn't buying it. I had seen too much. I was angry that she'd betrayed my trust, angry that she'd stolen from my family, and mostly, just devastated that the woman I married turned out to be a liar and a cheat. I started thinking about the future, about how I'd rebuild my life without her. I knew I had a long road ahead, but the first step was clear. I had to protect what was left, and that meant ending this mess once and for all. She kept trying to gaslight me, saying I was overreacting or that I was just jealous. But I knew the truth. The truth was that I was hurt and furious. I felt like I'd been hit with a ton of bricks, and I was just trying to hold myself together. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better. I deserved honesty, trust, and loyalty. And I was not going to let her take anything else from me, especially not my peace of mind or what little dignity I had left. I decided I'd fight her in court if I had to, and I'd make sure she paid for what she'd done. The betrayal was one thing, but her lying about it, her trying to pretend everything was fine, was what really pushed me over the edge. After I confronted Lisa and saw her breakdown, I knew I had act fast. The emotional was brutal, but I couldn't let it consume me. I had the evidence, and I was determined to protect what was left of my life, my money, my dignity, and my future. I contacted a lawyer the very next morning. I needed someone who could help me navigate the legal mess, especially with her planning to sue for half the property. It was clear she was trying to spin everything in her favor, probably to get some of the inheritance or even full custody of the house we shared. The lawyer, a sharp guy named Mark, listened carefully to everything I told him. I handed him all the evidence I had, screenshots, bank statements, hotel receipts, and copies of her messages. Mark told me I had a strong case, especially since I could prove she'd stolen from the inheritance and was having an affair. His advice was to get a court order to freeze her accounts and start the process of dividing assets. He also warned me that Lisa might try to manipulate the court, so I needed to be prepared for a fight. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, crying and begging for forgiveness. She spun stories about how she was sorry, how she'd made a mistake, and how she'd do anything to fix this. She even accused of pressuring her, saying she was weak, and that she was just trying to find happiness after years of feeling trapped. I could see through her lies, but part of me felt sick knowing she was trying to manipulate everyone, even the court. I knew her type: bitchy, selfish, and capable of anything when it suited her. The court case moved fast. I filed for a protective order to prevent her from selling or transferring any more assets. I also filed for full custody of the house, citing her infidelity and financial misconduct. The court hearings were intense. Lisa showed up in court, trying to look innocent, but I saw right through her. She was furious, bitter, and desperate to keep what she thought she deserved. She accused me of being controlling, of spying on her, and even of sabotaging her career. But I had the evidence: her own texts, bank statements, and testimonies from people who knew about her affair. During the hearings, Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that she was entitled to half the property because we had been married for so long. But I countered with proof that she'd been stealing from the inheritance, that she'd been unfaithful, and that her actions had severely damaged us both. I could see her frustration boiling over, her bitchy attitude turning into outright anger. It was satisfying in a way, seeing her so exposed, so vulnerable. She was used to manipulating everyone around her, but I had the truth, and I was ready to fight for every penny and every piece of my dignity. The judge ultimately sided with me on most points. He granted the protective order, froze her accounts, and awarded me full custody of the house. She was furious, screaming and calling me a bastard as she left the courtroom. I felt a strange mix of relief and disgust. Relief because I finally had some legal protection, and disgust because I'd had to go through all this to get it. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and now I saw how far some people would go to destroy others for their own gain. But it wasn't over yet. Lisa was already planning her next move. I knew she'd try to fight back, maybe even drag me into a long court battle. She had the money and the bitchy attitude to do it. I had to stay vigilant. I also started to realize that I needed to focus on rebuilding myself. I'd lost a lot: money, trust, and my sense of security. But I still had my integrity. That's what kept me going. I was determined not to let her ruin me completely. As I sat in my apartment that night, I looked around at the empty space where Lisa used to be. I felt numb, but also strangely relieved. I knew this was only the beginning of a long road ahead, but I was ready to fight for what was mine. I'd learned a lot about betrayal and deception, and I knew I'd never let someone do this to me again. The pain was real, but so was my resolve. I was going to come out of this stronger, even if it took everything I had. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, phone calls, and trying to piece my life back together. Lisa's reaction to losing the court case was predictable. She threw a tantrum, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of ruining her life, and claiming I was just a jealous, insecure husband who couldn't handle her success. She tried to spin it as if she was the victim, that I'd gone too far, that I was a controlling asshole. But I knew better. I had the evidence, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out of this mess. I remember the moment I finally felt some semblance of peace when the judge officially awarded me full custody of the house and froze her assets. It was like a huge weight had been lifted. For so long, I'd been living in the dark, second-guessing myself, wondering if I was overreacting. Now I saw everything clearly. Lisa's bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, they all came crashing down. She was furious, but I didn't care. Honestly, I felt a strange sense of relief that I didn't have to keep pretending everything was okay anymore. But even as I tried to focus on rebuilding, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't done. She was already plotting her next move, I could tell. She started showing up at the house, banging on the door, acting like she had a right to be there. She accused me of stealing from her, of ruining her reputation, of taking everything she ever wanted. It was all projection. I knew she was feeling the blow from losing everything, her affair, her money, her control, and she was lashing out. That bitchy side of her was on full display. One night she showed up unannounced, banging on the front door at 11 p.m. I didn't even bother opening it. I just stood there, watching her through the window. She was crying, screaming that I was a monster, that I was ruining her life, that she'd make me pay. I felt nothing but disgust. I'd given her so many chances to come clean, to do the right thing, but she chose to lie, cheat, and steal. Now she was trying to turn everything around and blame me for her failures. Her threats didn't scare me. I knew she was desperate, and I knew she was capable of anything to get what she wanted. That's when I decided I had to tighten security. I installed cameras, changed the locks, and made sure I had all the legal protections in place. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me or drag me into another nightmare. I had learned that she was a master manipulator, a liar, and a bitch who would do anything to get her way. Meanwhile, I started focusing on my own healing. I went to therapy, talked to friends, and slowly began to rebuild my confidence. I realized that I'd been living for her for too long, trying to make her happy while ignoring my own needs. That was my mistake. Now I knew I had to put myself first, even if that meant cutting her out completely. I didn't want her to have any more control over me or my life. The financial damage was still fresh in my mind. Losing the inheritance was a blow, but I was determined not to let that define me. I started working with a financial advisor to get back on track, to rebuild my savings and fix the mess she'd made. I knew she'd try to come back, try to manipulate the situation again, but I was ready for her. I'd learned her tricks and I wasn't going to fall for them anymore. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown through all this chaos. The betrayal was brutal, but it forced me to see who she really was: selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own gain. I've come to accept that I can't change her, but I can change myself. I can rebuild my life without her, and I will. The trust is gone, the love is gone, but I still have my dignity, my strength, and my resolve. And that's what keeps me going. It's been a few weeks since the court officially finalized everything. The house is now fully mine, the accounts are frozen, and Lisa's threats have mostly faded into the background, at least for now. But the damage she did runs deep. I catch myself sometimes staring at the walls, wondering how someone I trusted for so long could turn into this manipulative, bitchy person capable of stealing from my family and cheating on me for years. It's like waking up from a nightmare, but the scars are real, and they're going to stay with me for a long time. I've been trying to piece my life back together, but it's not easy. The emotional toll is heavier than I expected. Every time I see her face in my mind, I feel this mix of anger, sadness, and disappointment. I keep asking myself how I didn't see the signs sooner, how I let her manipulate me for so long. I realize now that her bitchy attitude, her lies, her constant need for control, these were all red flags I ignored. I was blinded by love, or maybe just too trusting. Either way, I learned a hard lesson: never ignore the signs of a toxic person. Financially, I've started to recover. I've cut my losses and moved on from the inheritance she stole. I've hired a financial advisor and am working on rebuilding my savings. It's slow, but I'm making progress. I've also been looking into ways to protect myself better in the future: legal safeguards, better security, and being more cautious about who I trust. Lisa's betrayal made me realize how important it is to stay vigilant, especially when it comes to money and relationships. On a personal level, I've been going out more, reconnecting with friends, and focusing on my mental health. Therapy has helped me process everything, especially the feelings of betrayal and anger. I've learned to accept that some wounds take time to heal, and I rush this process. I also started working out again, which has been a huge help in releasing stress and regaining my confidence. It's amazing how much physical activity can help clear your mind. But I won't lie, there are moments when I feel overwhelmed, like I'm still living in a world turned upside down. I sometimes wonder if I'll ever fully trust someone again, but I remind myself that I'm stronger than this. I've survived the worst and I'm still standing. Lisa's betrayal tried to break me, but I refused to let it define me. I've learned to be more cautious, more aware, and more protective of myself. The biggest lesson I've taken from all this is that honesty and loyalty are everything. When those are gone, everything else falls apart. I also learned that some people are just selfish and manipulative, and you can't change them. You have to recognize the signs early and cut your losses before they destroy you. I wish I'd seen her true colors sooner, but at least now I know better. Moving forward, I plan to focus on myself. I want to rebuild my life, find happiness again, and trust again someday. It's going to take time, but I believe I'll come out stronger. I want to warn others. If you see the signs of betrayal, don't ignore them. Trust your instincts, protect your assets, and don't be afraid to walk away. Because in the end, your peace of mind and dignity are worth more than any relationship built on lies. As I sit here reflecting, I realize I've been given a second chance. Lisa's betrayal was a brutal lesson, but it's also a wake-up call. I won't let her or anyone else manipulate me again. I'm rebuilding my life on my own terms now, and I'm determined to be better, wiser, and more cautious. The road to healing isn't easy, but I know I'll get there. I just have to keep moving forward, one day at a time. Looking back, I never thought I'd be the guy who'd go through something like this, losing everything, discovering that the woman I loved had been cheating and stealing from me for years. It's a brutal lesson in trust and betrayal. But I can honestly say that I've come out of it with a clearer sense of who I am and what I deserve. The pain is still there, but it's dulled by the knowledge that I survived, that I'm stronger now. One thing I've realized is that some people are just fundamentally selfish. Lisa was one of those people. She lied, cheated, stole, and manipulated everyone around her, all for her own gain. And she thought she could get away with it forever. But karma has a way of catching up with people like that. The court, the evidence, the legal protections. I used everything I could to stop her from hurting me further. And I did. I won't pretend it's been easy. There are days when I wake up feeling the weight of it all still pressing down. But I remind myself that I'm better off without her. I've also learned the importance of protecting myself, emotionally, financially, legally. I never want to be in a situation where I'm vulnerable again. From now on, I'll be more cautious, more aware of red flags, and more willing to walk away if something doesn't feel right. Trust is earned, not given blindly. If someone shows signs of being manipulative or dishonest, I'll listen. I won't ignore the little things anymore. Most importantly, I've realized that my happiness and peace of mind are worth fighting for. I've started to rebuild my life piece by piece. I've reconnected with friends, focused on my career, and taken up hobbies I'd neglected. I'm learning to enjoy life again, without the burden of betrayal hanging over me. It's not about forgetting what happened. It's about forgiving myself for trusting too easily and choosing to move forward anyway. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I want to say this: trust your gut. If someone shows you signs of deception or selfishness, don't ignore them. Protect your assets, your heart, and your sanity. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away before you get hurt even more, because in the end, your peace of mind is worth more than any relationship that's built on lies. I don't regret what happened. Every painful moment taught me something valuable. I've learned to be stronger, wiser, and more cautious. The betrayal hurt like hell, but it also pushed me to become better. I've found a new sense of resilience I didn't know I had. And even if I'm still healing, I know this: I will rebuild. I will trust again someday, but only when I'm sure that the person deserves it. Until then, I'll keep moving forward, one step at a time, with my head held high.